I am Jane, 32 years old, and 10 years ago, my brother Derek left his 4-month-old baby on my doorstep and disappeared into the night. My parents coldly refused to help, saying, "He made his mess, now you deal with it." I raised my nephew Caleb as my own, creating a beautiful life together. Then Derek returned with my parents, suing for custody, claiming I had stolen his son and kept them apart. Today in court, I handed the judge a sealed manila envelope. His eyes widened as he asked, "Do they even know what evidence you have here?" I simply nodded. Before I continue my story, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever had family betray your trust. Get comfortable because this story about how I fought for the son of my heart will show you what true family really means. Before Caleb came into my life, I had everything mapped out perfectly. I was working as a pediatric nurse at Denver General Hospital, had just been promoted to charge nurse on the children's ward, and was in a serious relationship with Brad, a software engineer I'd met at my friend's wedding. We'd been talking about getting engaged, maybe buying a house together in the suburbs. Life was following the exact timeline I'd envisioned since college. That all shattered on a cold February night in 2014. I just finished a brutal 14-hour shift covering for a colleague who'd called in sick. All I wanted was to collapse on my couch with leftover Chinese takeout and binge-watch Netflix. The doorbell rang at nearly 11 p.m., which immediately put me on edge. Living alone in a ground-floor apartment in Capitol Hill, late-night visitors were never good news. When I peered through the peephole, I saw nothing but darkness. The bell rang again, more insistently this time. Against my better judgment, I cracked the door open with the chain still attached. That's when I saw it. A baby carrier sitting on my welcome mat, covered with a ratty Denver Broncos blanket to protect against the February snow. My heart stopped. I yanked the door open fully and knelt beside the carrier. Inside was the most beautiful baby boy I'd ever seen, maybe 4 months old, with thick dark hair and Derek's distinctive dimpled chin. He was fast asleep, completely oblivious to the chaos his presence was about to unleash in my ordered world. Tucked beneath the blanket was a crumpled piece of notebook paper in Derek's messy handwriting. "His name is Caleb. I can't do this anymore. Take care of him. I'm sorry, Jane." That was it. 15 words that would redefine my entire existence. I frantically looked up and down the hallway, hoping to catch a glimpse of Derek's beat-up Honda Civic, but the parking lot was empty except for swirling snow. I tried calling his cell phone immediately. Straight to voicemail, just like it had been for the past 3 months since our last argument about his drinking and the string of dead-end jobs he couldn't keep. Shivering in my scrubs, I carefully lifted the carrier and brought Caleb inside. He was so tiny, so vulnerable, completely dependent on someone, apparently now me, to care for him. My hands shook as I set the carrier on my coffee table and really looked at him for the first time. He had Derek's features but seemed so much more peaceful than my troubled brother had ever been, even as a child. My first instinct was to call our parents in Colorado Springs. Their reaction still makes my stomach turn whenever I remember it. "We warned Derek this would happen," my mother said icily when I explained the situation. "Running around with that girl, refusing to use protection, dropping out of community college. Now look what he's done." "But what am I supposed to do?" I asked, panic rising in my voice. "I don't know anything about babies. I work with sick kids, not healthy infants. I can't just keep him." "You're a nurse," my father said curtly. "Figure it out." Derek made his choice, and apparently so did that girl. "We're too old to start raising another kid." "He's your grandson," I protested, staring at Caleb's sleeping form. "He's Derek's responsibility," my mother replied coldly. "We raised our children. We're done." They hung up before I could argue further, leaving me sitting in my quiet apartment with a sleeping baby and absolutely no idea what to do next. Caleb woke up 2 hours later with a hungry cry that sent me into complete panic mode. I had nothing, no formula, no diapers, no bottles, nothing. I called Brad hoping he could make an emergency run to the 24-hour Walmart on Colfax Avenue. His reaction was almost as devastating as my parents'. "Your brother just dumped a baby on you. Jane, that's insane. You need to call Child Protective Services right now." "I can't call CPS in the middle of the night," I said desperately, bouncing Caleb gently as his cries grew more intense. "He's my nephew. Can you please just get some supplies? I'll pay you back." "This isn't our problem," Brad said firmly. "This is exactly the kind of drama your family always creates. Don't get sucked into it." He hung up, and in that moment I realized I was completely on my own. I bundled Caleb into his carrier, grabbed my purse, and drove through the snowy streets to the nearest 24-hour store. Wandering the baby aisle in my rumpled scrubs at midnight, frantically Googling formula for 4-month-old and diaper sizes, I felt like I was drowning. A kind night shift worker named Rosa helped me gather essentials: formula, bottles, diapers, wipes, and a few basic outfits. That first night was a blur of feeding attempts, diaper changes, and trying to figure out why Caleb wouldn't stop crying. I called in sick to work the next morning for the first time in 3 years, using a personal day I'd been saving for a vacation with Brad. My supervisor, Dr. Martinez, was understanding when I explained the emergency family situation. I filed a police report the next day, but the officers weren't particularly concerned. "There's no crime in a parent leaving their child with a family member," Officer Thompson explained. "Your brother's not missing. He chose to leave. We'll take the report, but don't expect much follow-up." The family lawyer I consulted, Patricia Williams, explained that I'd need to file for temporary guardianship, a complex process that would require time, money, and extensive documentation. Those first weeks were the hardest of my life. I was furious at Derek for abandoning his son, for putting me in this impossible position without warning or discussion. But every time I looked at Caleb's trusting blue eyes or felt his tiny hand wrap around my finger, my anger melted into fierce protective love. I had to make major life changes quickly. My 1-bedroom apartment was too small, so I found a 2-bedroom place in Lakewood, closer to the hospital but stretching my budget dangerously thin. I reduced my work hours to 30 per week and switched primarily to day shifts, arranging childcare with Maria Santos, who ran a small daycare from her home near my new apartment. My relationship with Brad deteriorated rapidly. What started as reluctance to help turned into resentment about our changed dynamic. "I didn't sign up to date a single mom," he said during one of our increasingly frequent arguments. "We had plans, Jane. Career advancement, travel, buying a house together. How does any of that happen now?" "Life happens," I told him. "Plans change. What was I supposed to do? Put him in foster care? Maybe that would have been better for everyone," he muttered. That comment ended our relationship permanently. I packed up his few belongings and told him never to contact me again. Losing him hurt, but nowhere near as much as his suggestion that I should have abandoned Caleb to the system. Within 6 months, Caleb and I had established our own little world. He was a remarkably easy baby once I learned his cues. He loved morning walks in his stroller through Sloan Lake Park, fell asleep best to soft jazz music, and had an infectious laugh that could brighten my worst days. My co-workers at the hospital became our chosen family, organizing a baby shower and providing hand-me-downs, advice, and emotional support. My upstairs neighbor, Mrs. Chen, a retired kindergarten teacher, became like a grandmother to Caleb. She taught me her foolproof method for soothing his occasional fussy periods, and often watched him when I needed to run quick errands. "That boy has your eyes but his father's stubborn streak," she'd say with a knowing smile, bouncing Caleb on her lap while he giggled. 3 months after Derek's disappearance, I hired a private investigator with money I couldn't really afford. Jake Morrison managed to trace Derek to Las Vegas, where he'd apparently worked construction for a few weeks before the trail went cold again. It was simultaneously a relief to know he was alive and a heartbreak to understand he was choosing to stay away from his son. Despite the challenges of that first year, Caleb thrived. He rolled over right on schedule, sat up at 6 months and spoke his first word, "Mama," while looking directly at me. I documented every milestone with photos and videos, creating a memory box that included the few items he'd arrived with and Derek's crumpled note. Caleb's first birthday was nothing like the Pinterest-perfect celebrations my friends threw for their kids. I couldn't afford a fancy party, but I invited our small circle of supporters. Mrs. Chen baked a beautiful chocolate cake, my colleague Amy brought colorful balloons, and Caleb smashed frosting everywhere while we all cheered. My parents claimed they had prior commitments and didn't attend. As I tucked Caleb into his crib that night, now in his own room, decorated with second-hand furniture and wall decals I'd found at garage sales, I realized something profound had happened. This child who had arrived as an unexpected responsibility had become the center of my universe. I wasn't just caring for him out of obligation anymore. I loved him completely, as if he'd been mine from birth. "Happy birthday, sweet boy," I whispered, kissing his forehead. We made it through our first year together. By the time Caleb turned 2, our life had settled into comfortable routines. He was walking, talking in simple sentences, and displaying an artistic streak that reminded me of Derek's childhood talent for drawing. We had Friday movie nights with homemade popcorn, Sunday mornings at the playground, and bedtime stories that always ended with him asking for "one more, mama." My parents maintained their distance, visiting perhaps 3 times a year with the same critical energy they'd always brought to everything I did. My mother would bring inappropriate gifts, like educational toys meant for much older children, demonstrating how little attention she paid to who Caleb actually was. "He should be in music classes by now," she'd comment. "All the children his age are taking lessons." My father remained emotionally detached, asking surface-level questions about Caleb's development but never engaging in actual play. His anger at Derek seemed to have hardened into general disapproval of the entire situation. Caleb, sensitive even as a toddler, would become quieter during their visits. 5 years flew by in what felt like the blink of an eye. Caleb started kindergarten at Rocky Mountain Elementary, a milestone that filled me with equal parts pride and nostalgia for his baby days. Our morning routine was perfectly choreographed. Breakfast preparation, outfit negotiation, and backpack checks. Caleb was naturally curious, often waking me with questions about the day ahead. "Mama, is today library day? Can I wear my superhero shoes? Will you pack the peanut butter cookies?" I transitioned to working as a school nurse at a different elementary school to maintain professional boundaries, a job that came with school holidays off and family-friendly hours. My career ambitions had shifted completely from climbing the hospital hierarchy to creating stability for our little family of 2. Our apartment had become a true home, walls covered with Caleb's artwork and photographs documenting our journey together. His personality had blossomed into something remarkable, a combination of creativity, resilience, and boundless curiosity that amazed me daily. He loved building elaborate structures with blocks, creating stories about imaginary worlds, and asking questions that sometimes left me scrambling for age-appropriate answers. As Caleb grew older, his questions about his father became more frequent and complex. I'd always been truthful in age-appropriate ways, explaining that Derek was my brother who hadn't been ready to be a daddy when Caleb was born. "Where is he now?" Caleb would ask, his eyes wide with innocent curiosity. "I don't know exactly," I'd answer honestly. "But he made sure you came to me because he knew I would love you very, very much." "Will he ever come back?" "I don't know that either, sweetie. But no matter what, you and I are a family." To help him understand different family structures, I created a photo book with pictures and simple explanations showing how families come in all shapes and sizes. Some kids lived with grandparents, some with 2 moms or 2 dads, some with just 1 parent, and some, like Caleb, with an aunt who loved them more than anything in the world. My personal life remained largely on hold during these years. Dating as a single mother seemed nearly impossible, especially given my unique situation. The few men I met through work or friends who initially seemed promising would inevitably pull back when they understood my complete commitment to Caleb. I chose to focus on his needs rather than pursue relationships that might bring instability into our carefully constructed world. Our support network continued growing. I joined a single parents group that met monthly at the community center, finding friendship and practical advice from others navigating similar challenges. Caleb formed close bonds with several children whose parents became part of our chosen family, celebrating holidays and milestones together. Financial stability remained a constant concern. I took on telehealth nursing consultations 2 evenings a week after Caleb was asleep, slowly building a college fund for his future. It meant less sleep for me and careful budgeting of every expense, but watching that savings account grow gave me peace of mind about providing long-term security. When Caleb turned 7, we took our first real vacation. A trip to Disneyland that he still talked about years later. Watching his face light up as he met Mickey Mouse made every extra shift and financial sacrifice worthwhile. We returned with a photo album full of memories and renewed appreciation for our daily life together. 4 more years passed in the comfortable rhythm of school years, summer breaks, and holidays filled with our chosen family. Caleb was 10, thriving in 5th grade with close friends and a passion for both art and baseball that kept him engaged and active. He'd grown into a thoughtful, confident child with Derek's creative talent, but a stability of character that was entirely his own. The phone call came on an ordinary Thursday evening in March as I was helping Caleb with his science fair project about renewable energy. An unknown California number flashed on my screen, which I almost ignored, assuming it was a telemarketer. "Hello, Jane." The voice was uncertain, familiar yet strange after so many years of silence. "It's Derek." My hand tightened around the phone as I stepped quickly into my bedroom, away from Caleb's curious gaze. "Derek, where are you? Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Actually, I'm in town. I was hoping we could meet to talk." We arranged to meet the next day while Caleb was at school. I spent the night alternating between anxiety, anger, and a strange sense of relief that he was alive and apparently well. I told Caleb I had a doctor's appointment, hating the small lie but knowing I needed to understand Derek's situation before involving his son. The man who walked into Starbucks on 16th Street was almost unrecognizable from the troubled brother I remembered. Derek was 34 now, his hair neatly trimmed, wearing khakis and a button-down shirt instead of the wrinkled band t-shirts of his youth. He looked healthy, put together, worlds away from the struggling young father who had abandoned his baby a decade ago. "You look good," he said as he sat across from me. "Really good." "So do you," I replied cautiously, studying his face for traces of the brother I'd once been close to. "You seem different." He proceeded to tell me a story of recovery and redemption. After leaving Caleb with me, he'd spiraled deeper into alcohol and drug addiction, living homeless in various cities before hitting rock bottom in Phoenix and checking himself into rehabilitation. There he'd met Lauren, a counselor, and after completing his program and maintaining sobriety for 5 years, they had married. They had no children of their own. "I wasn't fit to be a father then," he admitted. "I was using heavily when Caleb was born. I was terrified I was going to hurt him or worse. Bringing him to you was the only responsible thing I did during that entire period." I showed him photos on my phone of the childhood he'd missed. Caleb's first steps, first day of school, baseball games, birthday parties, Halloween costumes, Christmas mornings. Derek's eyes filled with tears as he scrolled through a decade of absence. "He's incredible," he whispered. "So smart and happy. You've done an amazing job, Jane." We talked for hours, carefully navigating 10 years of separation and the complex reality of our situation. Finally, Derek said what I'd been dreading. "I'd like to meet him, if you think that would be okay. Lauren and I have been talking about it for months. I'm ready to be the father I should have been." The warning bells in my head were deafening, but I pushed aside my concerns. Maybe this could be positive for Caleb, having his biological father in his life in a healthy way. After careful consideration and consultation with Dr. Patricia Hayes, a child psychologist, I arranged the first meeting between Derek and Caleb. I prepared Caleb by explaining that Derek, his father, had been very sick when Caleb was a baby but was better now and wanted to meet him. I emphasized that nothing would change about our life together, but that Derek might become part of our family. The meeting took place at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, where Caleb could feel comfortable and engaged if the interaction became overwhelming. Caleb was uncharacteristically shy, clinging to my hand as Derek approached with a nervous smile. "Hi, Caleb," Derek said softly. "I've been looking forward to meeting you for a long time." "Hi," Caleb replied, half hiding behind me. "Mama says you're my dad." "That's right. And I'm sorry I couldn't be there when you were little. But I'm here now." Caleb nodded solemnly. "Mama is still my real mom, though. She takes care of me and loves me and helps me with homework." Derek's eyes filled with tears, but he smiled. "That's absolutely right. You're very lucky to have such a wonderful mom." Over the following months, Derek became a cautious presence in our lives. We established supervised visits, gradually increasing time as Caleb grew more comfortable. Derek was respectful of boundaries, always deferring to my parenting decisions and bringing thoughtful gifts that showed he was paying attention to Caleb's interests. After about 8 months of this careful dance, Derek dropped his bombshell. He and Lauren were moving permanently to Denver. He'd accepted a job at a local marketing firm, and they'd purchased a house in the suburbs. "We want to be closer to Caleb," he explained over coffee. "To be a regular part of his life." I invited Derek and Lauren for dinner, wanting to get to know the woman who would be around my nephew. The evening went smoothly on the surface. Lauren was charming, complimenting my cooking and asking Caleb about school. But something felt rehearsed about their interactions, like they were performing rather than genuinely connecting. The other shoe dropped during dessert. "We've been thinking," Derek said, glancing at Lauren for support. "Now that we're settled and financially stable, it might be time for Caleb to live with us. Legally, I mean." My fork clattered against my plate. "What exactly are you saying?" "We think it would be best for Caleb to live with his father and stepmother," Lauren interjected smoothly. "Of course, you'd have liberal visitation. No one can take away what you've done for him, Jane. But a child should be with his biological parent when possible." "I am his parent," I said, my voice low to avoid alerting Caleb, who was showing Lauren his latest drawings in the living room. "I've been his parent for 11 years while you were nowhere to be found." "Biologically, I'm his father," Derek countered. "And we can provide things you can't. We have a 4-bedroom house with a yard in an excellent school district. I make good money. He could have stability opportunities." "He already has everything he needs," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Including security with the only parent he's ever known." But the conversation had revealed Derek's true intentions. This wasn't about reconnecting with his son. This was about taking him away from me entirely. The situation escalated when my parents unexpectedly invited us for Sunday dinner, something they rarely did. When we arrived, Derek and Lauren were already there, looking comfortable in my childhood home. It became clear this was an ambush. "Derek has told us about his recovery and his desire to be a proper father to Caleb," my father announced after an uncomfortable meal. "We think it's time for the boy to be with his real father." "You've done your part, Jane," my mother added. "But Derek can provide a traditional family with 2 parents." The betrayal cut deep. My parents had apparently been in contact with Derek for months, supporting his plan to take Caleb from me. As we drove home, Caleb was unusually quiet. "Mama," he finally said in a small voice, "Grandpa said I might go live with Dad and Lauren. Is that true?" My heart broke at the anxiety in his voice. "No, sweetheart. You live with me. That's your home." "But he said Dad is my real father and I should be with him." I pulled over and turned to face him fully. "Listen to me, Caleb. You and I are a family. We have been since you were 4 months old. Nothing is going to change that. I promise. Cross your heart." "Cross my heart," I said firmly, making our special gesture. "No one is going to take you away from me." 3 weeks later, the certified letter arrived. Derek was petitioning for custody, claiming I had unlawfully kept his son from him. The court date was set for 6 weeks later. I liquidated my savings and took out a loan to hire Margaret Thompson, a family law attorney specializing in custody cases. "I won't sugarcoat this," she said after reviewing my case. "Biological parents have strong rights. But the length of time you've been Caleb's primary caregiver works heavily in your favor. During this time, I hired the same private investigator I'd used years before. Jake Morrison discovered something that changed everything. Derek and Lauren had been systematically researching Caleb's potential inheritance from his mother's family. Caleb's biological mother, Stephanie, had died in a car accident 2 years prior, and her wealthy parents had established a trust fund for their unknown grandson. The timing of Derek's reappearance, exactly after the trust became accessible, was no coincidence. On the day of the hearing at Denver Family Court, I sat across from Derek, Lauren, and my parents, all dressed impeccably and presenting themselves as the stable, traditional family Caleb supposedly needed. Judge Patricia Rodriguez, a stern woman in her 50s, called the court to order. Derek testified first, presenting a compelling narrative of recovery, stability, and paternal longing. My parents supported his claims, painting me as someone who had refused to facilitate father-son reunification. When my turn came, I presented testimony from Caleb's teachers, our pediatrician, and child psychologist, all documenting the strong, secure attachment Caleb had to me and the potential trauma of disrupting his primary relationship. Then came the moment that changed everything. Margaret presented the sealed envelope of evidence to Judge Rodriguez. As she reviewed the contents, her expression shifted from professional neutrality to visible concern. "Mr. Morrison," she said, addressing Derek, "are you aware that your petition coincides precisely with your son becoming eligible for a substantial trust fund inheritance?" Derek's face paled. "I don't know what you mean, Your Honor. The court has evidence of extensive research into the financial benefits of establishing paternal rights to this child, including communications between you and your wife about the monetary advantages of custody." The judge's ruling was swift and decisive. "It is clear to this court that the petitioner's motivations are primarily financial rather than based on the child's best interests. The petition for change of custody is denied. Caleb will remain with his aunt and legal guardian, Jane Thompson." Relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly collapsed. When I picked up Caleb from school that day and told him he was staying with me forever, he threw his arms around my neck. "You kept your cross-your-heart promise, Mama." "I always keep my promises to you," I said, holding him tight. "Always." Today, 3 years later, Caleb is 13 and thriving. Derek has limited supervised visitation, which he rarely uses. My parents have apologized and are working to rebuild their relationship with both of us. Most importantly, Caleb knows beyond any doubt that family isn't defined by biology. It's created by love, commitment, and the daily choice to show up for each other. What has your experience been with chosen family? Have you ever had someone become family through love rather than blood? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more stories about the true meaning of family. Remember that the most beautiful families are often the ones we build ourselves, one day of love at a time.